Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Visceral Musings. I am your host, Cody Reed, and today I talked to my childhood best friend, Josh Smith. We got into it. We talked about growing up. We talked about the meaning behind our matching tattoos. We even trauma dumped a little bit. Do they end up together at the end? I don't know. You're going to have to stick around and find out. The topic of today's episode ended up being, oddly enough, about religion, but not religion from a Bible thumper's perspective, rather from an envious and reluctant skeptic's perspective. Who knows, maybe by the end of the episode, we decide to convert to Mormonism. Or maybe we just renew our virginities and save ourselves for each other. There's only one way to find out. I love this guy, and I think you guys are going to love him too. So enjoy the half professional recorded and half phone recorded quality of today's episode of Visceral Musings. I will see you guys every Wednesday from here on out. Thank you for checking it out. It is really happening, folks. Let's do it. Well, today I'm talking to my buddy Josh. He's my childhood friend. So my first question for you, Josh, is who are you and what do you do?
I don't know about the who am I question. I'm a maintenance director at the moment, but just got a job offer to be a car salesman. So
I used to do that.
Yeah?
Yes. Yeah, I was fucking terrible at it, actually.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see if I'm going to be bad at it or not, but you can make quite a bit of money, so...
So you just graduated college?
Yeah, I just got my dual master's degree in December. I graduated with my undergrad in 2020, like right when COVID hit. I think like they called school out for my finals, so we all just ended up passing anyway. And then in 2021, I decided to go get my master's degree in business administration, and they had basically you could finish in a year and a half and get 2 master's degrees. So I was like, why not? So it's in accounting and business administration. Really super boring shit, but I mean, supposedly it was going to help me get a job, and now I'm applying as a car salesman. So
when I used to sell cars, they used to have us do this thing every single day. They called it watching your Andes. And so basically what we would do is we would sit and listen to this guy. His name's Andy Elliott. He's a car salesman. And he's from Texas, but he's in Arizona now. And so what he does is he has you, he gives you like all the tricks and like all the tools of the trade that help you become the best car salesman that you could possibly be. And so we had to watch 2 of his videos a day. And part of the reason why I quit doing car sales is because I watched a video with him where the topic was probing for cash down. And he was like, so there's you, and then there's your wife. Let's just say like you're trying to get a car, and you've got like your kids with you. So I'm like, there's you, there's your wife. Who other than you and the mother of your children loves your kids more than you? And then so that leaves you in this predicament where they're like, well, say it's your mom. So your mom loves your kids the third most out of you and your wife or your girlfriend or whatever the fuck. And then you'd be like, she wants those pretty babies that you have. She wants them to be safe, right? And so if you put more cash down, the more cash you put down is going to significantly decrease your monthly payment. It's going to make sure that you and you're keeping your kids safe. Like just shit like that, like really scummy shit that I had to, that's why I had to get out of it.
Yeah.
I was like, this ain't punk rock, dog. I gotta get the fuck out of here. So that's why I ended up leaving. But I wasn't like terrible at it. I did okay. I might have had some help, but still.
Nice. But yeah, and then back to your question of who am I? I still haven't figured it out, so I don't know if I'll be able to tell you.
No, that's okay. I think a name will work. Josh. Joshua. All right. Well, we are both from Sholo, Arizona. You're from I wouldn't say from. You live in Bellingham now, right?
Yeah.
I loved it out there. I thought it was really pretty. I loved going out there and seeing you. It was years ago now, like pre-COVID, but still. What would you say growing up in Sholo was like for you?
Growing up in Sholo was like for me?
Yes.
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I mean, I hated it. Hated it a lot. I think that could probably sum it up the best. Not a lot of inclusivity with basically like sports, anything you wanted to do social wise.
Which is, I think that's interesting, because when people hear of Sholo, when you say like, "Oh, I'm from Sholo, a small town in the northeastern part of Arizona," the first thing that comes to people's mind is just super liberal, very open-minded. But you'd be surprised. No, it's not like that at all.
No, not even a little bit. Actually, quite the opposite. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think my experience there, I mean, because I wasn't born there, but I mean, all of my childhood, the little bits that I do remember were in Sholo. So, I mean, it's kind of where I was getting like my grounding, becoming self-aware was in Sholo. So, I mean, I had a lot of like, I don't know, weird experiences there, kind of coming into my own, and then slowly realizing that I didn't want to be there at all. And there was so much more out there to get to.
Yeah, I'm glad it was a quick realization for me that I didn't want to be there. And then I fucking stayed there well into my 20s. So, at least you got the hell out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't my choice at the time. I don't know why my parents decided to. They just randomly uprooted. I'm sure there's some kind of weird thing where like my dad was trying to run from like a DUI or something like that, and like they thought moving states would help.
Just blend in with all the city folk, or I guess the small town folk, and that's how he'll get by. Your dad was a plumber, right?
Yeah. I mean, at various times he held the status of being a plumber. I don't remember him holding down a job for super long, but yeah, that's what he was. I think from pretty early on, he just did like plumbing work on the side, and then he had a couple opportunities to get certified. I don't think he ever did though.
Which that's cool, because when I was growing up, my dad was just an alcoholic. He was, and it's sometimes a prisoner. So I don't know. I didn't really see him a whole lot. But I did see your dad quite a few times. What did your mom do when you were growing up?
Oh, she did a few different things. She, as far back as I can remember, she was a ultrasound. No, she wasn't. She was like she took like X-rays at like a dentist's office or something like that, which she was really into. And then she got cancer, and I think she was trying to sue her employer for getting cancer, but I guess that didn't end up working out for her.
Did she think that it was from the X-ray tech?
Yeah. She I think she was under the impression that she wasn't given the right equipment or something like that. I'm not sure. But after that, she worked at Walmart. She got hurt there or something. And then she was a nail tech, I think. And that's what she currently does now. Is she's a nail tech in Newport, Washington.
I'm glad that she got better from the cancer, because that's pretty heavy to go from. Yeah,
it was. She had to do some like radiation stuff, but I mean, I don't know. When I was like, I don't know, 16 and like under, I was just kind of like floating around, like not really like registering anything that was like happening. So I wasn't even really like scared or anything like that. Not that I didn't, like have any deep feelings at any point, but I was just more like observing my own life at that point. So didn't really like have any kind of like resounding like effect on me having my mom go through that. But yeah, she ended up coming out on the other side pretty good. I think it was thyroid cancer, I want to say. But she's doing good now. I don't think she has too many health problems at the moment.
I didn't see your mom very often when we were growing up. I usually saw like you and your sisters because, I mean, for one, we went to school together, but I do remember a very, very specific time that I did see your mom at school, and it was because, and like you're going to have to fill in some of the blanks on this one because I don't all the way remember it, but we were in class one time when we were in 6th grade, which is, I believe that's where we actually met each other, was, like we went to school with each other, but we weren't like friends until we were in 6th grade. Yeah. And we were all in the same class. It was me, you, and a couple of other kids.
Yeah, I remember 6th grade.
Oh, yeah. And there was a specific instance where our teacher, who I'm not going to say her name, but she was a fucking bitch. She, I remember this.
Her as the dragon.
The dragon?
Yeah.
So the dragon was, we were kids. Like, you don't think about it, like, because at the time it didn't necessarily seem that way, but we were 11 and 12-year-old kids. So what we would do is we had silent reading. Yeah. So during the silent reading, we would break crayons
I remember that.
And throw them across the room at each other. So, and I remember she goes up to the front of the class and she liked to cuss. She would do it for like dramatic effect. And so she starts scolding all of us, these like 11 and 12-year-old kids, which is, to think now, like I'm going to be 27 coming up here pretty quick. She was older than I am now. She was in her 40s. To be a grown woman at the front of the classroom screaming and cussing at like 11-year-old kids, like if I did that now, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So she goes up to the front of the class and she starts saying, if you're going to throw my shit, then I'm going to throw my shit. And verbatim, that's what she said. But she didn't throw a crayon.
No, she threw a stapler.
She picked up a stapler. And then what happened? You remember? You should know exactly what happened.
I think I still have a scar on my back from it. I swear to God, right where she hit me, she hit me like lower back. It hit my back, and then it bounced off the chair, and then hit me again. And man, I just busted out in tears because I wasn't that was the last thing I thought was going to happen, was that I would get a stapler launched at me in the middle of class. I don't even think I was paying attention to her.
No, I don't think so.
Zoning off. I was like, you're not going to get anywhere with this like conversation with us. And then just like boom, stapler in the back, bro. It was rough.
I remember seeing her, and then I remember thinking, she's not going to throw that fucking stapler. And then she threw the stapler, and then I was like,
she proved you wrong.
Yeah. Then it hit your chair and like bounced into your back, and I was like, I wonder if that hurt. And then you started crying, and I was like, oh shit. And then she runs over and then snaps back into being an adult, which is what she was first and foremost. She hit a kid with a stapler, and then I'm afraid of my mom when she gets angry. I think there's very few things in this life that are more terrifying than like an angry mother.
Yeah.
When I saw your mom get to the school to start that fucking conversation, I remember being terrified on your behalf, even though she was coming to defend you. I was scared.
Yeah, my mom, I feel like she's always wanted to be like that mom. So having an opportunity to justifiably stick up for her kid was just like the perfect thing for her. She was waiting for that day that I got pelted with a stapler. Like it was her time to shine.
I'm sure she knows the time and date too. Like she has it in her phone calendar at the nail salon. It goes off, and she's just like, "Oh shit."
Well, our teacher, man, I have like so many like, I don't know if it's like the trauma from like childhood or what, but there's like I have few memories from my childhood, but I feel like I can remember a lot in that class. Like I think that was when like Obama was running for the first time or some shit like that.
Yes, and I remember the mock election.
Yeah, and then Tyler was talking. I think he was talking about like his dad and like how he didn't want to vote for him or something like that. And she just went off on him. Just was so pissed off that he was talking about politics, but then she ended up inserting her own opinion on what was going on into the conversation.
Yeah, she lit him up. I remember that. But one thing, which I'm not gonna stay on this one for super long, but she used to ride a bike to school, but she was a big lady. And she would tell us all the time, like, oh, I love riding my bike because I get so much exercise. This is how I exercise and, like, get my my cardio in or whatever.
Yeah.
That bitch had a fucking DUI. She did not ride a bike for exercise. She rode a bike because she had a blow start on her car and she didn't want to stop drinking.
Man, yeah.
I found that out, like, when I was in high school. That the fucking dragon had a breathalyzer in her car and she couldn't blow a zero, so she just rode her bike.
Man, yeah. There was one time, I don't know if I ever even told you about it, but remember how I used to do choir? That was like the thing everyone was doing.
Oh, yeah.
So in the bathroom, in the choir room, the lights were turned off for some reason. So I go into the boys' bathroom, and they had put a big bucket in front to, like, prop the door open, but the door was closed. Someone pushed it closed. So when I walked in there, I was trying to find the light, and I, like, busted my knee open on the bucket. And I, like, come out, and I was a pretty sensitive guy at the time. And so, I mean, I was bawling my eyes out because I, like, fucked my knee up. And, it was Miss Whipple. Miss Whipple was like, okay, go back to class. You obviously, like, you can't sing right now. You're hurt. And I go back to class, and I can't remember their names. Brianna was one of them. Shout out Brianna. And then there was those two other girls. I can't.
They were in our class?
Yeah, it was like, they were like
Sierra and Autumn?
Yeah. Yeah. And so they were all talking to our teacher, and I come in, and I was like, Miss Whipple sent me back because I hurt my knee. And she, like, looked at me, and she's like, you don't need your knee to sing. And it just kind of funny at the time, but I was so pissed off. But then, like, her posse of like girl students started to all, like, laugh at me. And oh man, I was so pissed off. So I just went and waited for the buses or something, and it was only like 12 o'clock.
There's nothing worse than being, like, accurately burned in front of everybody.
Yeah.
She got you. So I did want to highlight one thing that I remembered about you. It was one of the things that I don't know why it stands out so much in my memory, but I remember when we were growing up, you wore jackets all the time. Always had, like, a zip-up hoodie.
Yeah.
But you had an iPod Shuffle. And the iPod Shuffle had the way that you skipped, for all the fucking people that are younger than us that have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, it was how you listen to music. And the iPod Shuffle, this one model of it was like a rectangle. Mm-hmm. And it didn't have a skip button on it. It was attached to the headphones, but you broke your headphones.
Yeah.
So you could only skip up. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I used to sit and watch you click, like, you'd have the fucking thing going, like all the time to try and skip through. I remember that so well. I don't know why that's what stuck out with me, but I definitely remember that so well.
Yeah, I feel like sixth grade is one of those times.
Fever dreams.
Yeah, or I feel like I remember it most out of, like, any time in my life. I actually remember when I think we first talked. I don't know if you remember it or not. It was on the bus.
I don't.
No,
because we lived in the same neighborhood.
Yes.
For a little bit. Yeah.
We rode the same bus. Do you remember Pat?
Of course, yeah, the bus driver with the hair plugs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good old.
I got banned from that bus because I used to be such a little fucker. That was my whole thing. I would always just try to I was always going for the laugh, and then I was so funny that I wasn't allowed on the bus anymore. So my mom had to come pick me up from school. That's why in junior high, I know you remember in junior high, we used to just walk everywhere. We'd get off school, we'd walk to the park. We'd go get sodas from Circle K, then we'd go back to the park, walk around, walk home, because I wasn't allowed to ride the bus.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Well, with Hair Plug Pat, he he was he had like a bus monitor, and I wanted to be the bus monitor, and it's not because I wanted to like tattle on kids or anything like that. It's because it was the only person that could walk around on the bus while it's moving.
Smart.
But I obviously looked like a chump because, you know, I was like ratting on other kids and all the shit that they were doing. And I remember I came and I like sat down like next to you because I had to sit down for something. And I can't remember exactly what you said to me, but you had asked me like why I'm doing it. And I was like, because I got to walk around on the fucking bus when it's going. And you were like, I was sitting here thinking you were this like punk ass like tattletale kid, and he's like, and you're like, you just wanted to walk around on the bus while it was going this whole time. And I think that's where you thought that I was kind of cool, and then it like slowly developed into like we would talk every now and again and hang out, and then we were hanging out on the weekends, and Night Owl Night Fury came from that.
Right. Yeah.
Just took off.
Yeah. That was where the bond started. I found out that you weren't a Boy Scout, and I was like, oh shit, he's just a lot smarter than I am. Which I can fuck with that. There was a time in junior high, I want to say, so because we went to the same school, not only the same, like we were in the same sixth grade class, but we stayed in the same building for I want to say like 6 years, because they changed it was called Sholo Intermediate School. It transitioned from being the intermediate school into being the junior high also. So we were there from like, what was it, like fourth grade on to eighth grade or something like that, but like there were spaces in between. Yeah. So we were there for, I guess, like 4 full school years or whatever, but it was it felt like forever. I guess 5 doesn't fucking matter. We were there for a long time.
Yeah.
So there was an auditorium on the outside of it, and I talked about this with our friend. Well, you remember Zach Perkins? Yeah. I was on his little podcast called The Desert Rats, and it somehow or another came up that we had done we did the talent show, we did "Sugar We're Going Down" by Fall Out Boy. And like we grew up in a strong Mormon community, so they made us change the lyrics, and you could not play any instruments, and you didn't want to sing.
No.
So, and they say a lot of the time that the person doesn't pick the instrument so much as the instrument picks the person, and your weapon of choice was the triangle.
Yes, sir, it was.
And from what I remember, you got up there, you hit that first initial ding, and then saw that the entire school was sitting in the crowd, and you didn't want to play the triangle anymore.
Yeah, no, the probably one of the few times in my life where I think I started to like realize what anxiety was.
Oh yeah,
and hitting the triangle and then like seeing everybody, because they all thought it was funny, because it was funny.
It was fucking hilarious.
It didn't translate that I was doing something funny. It translated that 300 plus kids are laughing at me. So
yeah.
I remember the way that you guys had the like song, like the stand for it. I was right in between you and Josh, and I like slightly hunkered down so my eyesight, like you couldn't see my eyes because I was like right in the way of the stand. So I gotta say, yeah, when I actually heard you and Zach talk about it, I had this, because I completely forgot about it, I had this like like the anxiety of it hit me like once more, because I think I blocked it out, because it was pretty embarrassing. I don't think anybody even really still thinks about it or talks about it, but yeah, I think that was the beginning of my anxiety, was whenever the hell that was.
Oh yeah, it's a different kind of, because I stayed in that where like I was trying to play music in front of people. It doesn't ever go away. Like when you get up in front of people and you look out, and like, because there's been times like throughout the years that like you've actually gotten to come and like watch the band when we were doing it.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing you in Flagstaff in like I think maybe once in Phoenix too. Like when we would have a show out of town, and
Yeah.
you showed up to them, you and a couple of your friends and stuff. So then that was like the junior high era. We had for a time our own language. I don't know if you remember it or not, but I definitely do. And it was something along the lines of it was boner alert, and it was my dogs.
Oh, man.
My dogs are barking.
Yeah. I remember. It's okay to use names or not. Redacted. And I remember we would go. I would go up to her because man, I had a crush on her from like I don't know, second grade, just up, like just in. I could not get myself to like ask her out or like talk to her or anything like that. So just kind of like somebody that we know that thinks me and you are kind of funny. And I remember going up to her and telling her that when I clean her clock or my dogs are barking or something like that. And I'm sure she picked up on it that I was trying to say something.
Oh, man, I forgot about clean your clock. I forgot about that one. You know where that came from? That one I do remember. Okay, so that one came from my... redacted. Got in a fight when he was in I think we would have been like 4th grade or 6th grade. He was in 4th grade, and he got in a fight with this kid who is deaf. Because they had the same teacher. Her name was Miss Q. And Miss Q... kept telling redacted. She's like, redacted. You pick a fight with redacted. It's going to clean your clock. And then, so redacted. Kept getting into arguments or whatever, I guess in sign language. And he ended up cleaning his clock in front of everybody. And then went up to Miss Q and told her, Miss Q, clean my clock. He said it to her. And then that's where clean your clock came from. But I don't remember what the connotation was that we used to use.
I think it was equivalent to like a salad toss.
Oh, okay. I like that we were early on to the like ass eating.
Yeah. I mean, it was before it was all the rage. Now it's like in foreplay, basically. So
yeah, this was still underground at the time. And I was a big kid. I had an appetite. So I mean.
Oh yeah.
So I did eat many a butt from here over the years.
I didn't even know that about you. I'm glad to hear.
Oh yeah, dude. I don't know. I don't fucking care. I'm down with it.
I think they should put it in like the food pyramid, man. I mean, everybody got to get it done. You gotta get it done to you too. I mean, it's quite the experience. Probably
gonna cut that part.
That's all right.
That's just for. I just want you to know that I've eaten ass.
I'm not ashamed of it. You can put in there that I have, and it's happened to me. There's nothing to be ashamed about that, I mean, I'm not a work 9 to 5, and then have my butt ate. I mean, there's prep to it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know who just goes in there after a long day. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a little bit of a hot zone after a while. So you don't want to go in too hot.
Yeah, if you've been working all day, so has your ass. So,
oh yeah.
If you need a shower, so does your ass. If you have an ass, clean it before it gets eaten. It's like produce. Think of it like the food pyramid. Most things in the food pyramid need to be washed before you eat them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So when we got we made it all the way up to high school, and I actually was going to touch on that redacted. We both had a crush on the same girl at the same time. But do you remember there was a rift in our friendship for a time because she asked me to go to a dance with her, but she didn't tell me that somebody else had already asked her, and she lied and said she had a date. And then she brought me with her. She was like, I told this guy I have a date to the dance. Will you come with me? And I was like, sure, yeah. So I go to the dance, and it was you.
Yeah, I do remember that because I think she asked, or like Zach, one of the Zachs, I think it was redacted. Maybe that was his last name. That's been a million years. I think he was going to go with her, but he got sick or something. And so I was like, oh, sweet, like she's available. I can ask her to go to the dance. And she's like, oh, I'm actually already going with somebody. And she didn't tell me who. I was like, oh, like, that's totally fine. You already had a backup. It's all good. And then showed up. And I remember I was upset about it, but I was like, you know what? At least maybe I could just get a dance with her, and I was trying to look at the bright side. And I went up and I asked her for a dance, and she's like, I just don't want you to get the wrong idea about us. And I was like, I think you going with my best friend already put the idea in my head, but that's all right. And I think that actually, I think subconsciously that ruined dances for me, like all through high school.
Right. I didn't go to them either.
I got like depressed every time I would go. So
that was one of the weirdest things that happened, and that was like Valentine's Day. So we still had the rest of the school year, and then I think summertime was where we really hit our stride.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah. And so I'm gonna skate over a couple things because I know I'm gonna circle back to them. So when we got out of high school, I remember distinctly the first time that you and I hung out. You came back to Arizona on a road trip with an ex-girlfriend and a friend at the time.
Yeah.
And I went and met you at Oregano's.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember showing up and you were balling out. You were paying for everybody's food. Not like, I mean, we bought our own shit, but you were buying for everybody else at the table. And you were like, get whatever you want. And they fucking did. And then I remember at the end of it, you're like, when I told you could get whatever you wanted, I didn't mean that as like a challenge.
Yeah.
I laughed my ass off at that.
Yeah.
And then so when you did that, and I was nervous because I was like, dude, this is gonna be weird. I haven't seen Josh, and well, at the time it had been like 4 years, and then we get done with dinner, and I remember walking out, and for some reason, I just gotten really big into Run the Jewels. So this is like, I think I might have been 19 or 20. So Run the Jewels 2 had just come out, and I was like, do the fist and gun with me. So I had you put the fist out, and I did the gun, or maybe vice versa. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then you were like, I don't even know what that is. And I was like, I don't care. Just do it real quick. So we took the picture like that. And then I was like, you got to listen to Run the Jewels. So then every single time I saw you, and I have chronicles of it, us doing Run the Jewels, like 2016, 2017, so on and so forth. And then I remember I stayed with you in... What was it? You had an apartment in Phoenix for a little bit, and I only stayed there the one time with you before you went back to Washington.
Yeah.
So, and I'm prefacing only slightly. Are you a big fan of Run the Jewels?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm like an avid listener necessarily, but I mean, I like their music. I mean, I think it's would I have? I don't have any kind of like particular like music taste. I kind of like everything. So I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest fan. I mean, would I see him in like concert, something like that? Definitely. But I mean, it's not on my like top 3 playlist songs.
Right. And so with that being said, you do have a Run the Jewels tattoo on you.
I do have a Run the Jewels. It's probably one of my biggest ones too.
Yeah, mine's not as big as yours, but because I got the smaller half of it. Yeah. But we do have a matching Run the Jewels tattoo. And one of the things I knew, because I hadn't seen you in a while, it was another stretch again. When I went back to Washington, we're hanging out in Bellingham. We finally got through. We got through to like a tattoo artist that was able to take in a couple of walk-ins. And I remember I was like, "Do you even like Run the Jewels that much?" You're like, "No, but I want to get a matching tattoo with you." You're like, "I like Run the Jewels, like they're great, sure, but if you want this, I'll get it." And I was like, "That is so fucking punk rock." Yeah, I thought that was so fucking cool.
Well, I don't know, like I feel like people with tattoos, there's a lot of weird, like I don't know, like the way people talk about them, you don't want to regret it when you're older and shit like that. And I'm like, if I am 80 or 90 years old and I'm on my deathbed and I'm thinking, I'm like, fuck, I shouldn't have gotten that tattoo on my leg of that band that I really wasn't super into. I had a pretty good fucking life. If that's on the top, where that's the thing I'm most like stressed out about is the tattoos that I got on my body. I had a good fucking life with not very many regrets in it. So I just feel like tattoos they just aren't that big of a deal, and it's kind of a cool way to kind of represent like different chapters. I mean, I have some really religious ones. And I do not believe in God.
Coming back to we're coming back to that.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. There is, so for reference, that I have the gun and he has the fist with the jewels on it. Specifically Run the Jewels 2, because that was my favorite album of theirs. It still is my favorite Run the Jewels album, and I wanted to get it immortalized in some way or another, and then also having Run the Jewels be like such a mainstay between you and I thought was really special to me. So getting that was really important. There's 2 letters underneath of it.
Yes.
And so on my leg it says NO, and on your leg it says NF. Do you know why that is?
Night Owl and Night Fury. Yeah.
Right. I've heard tale of the Night Owl and the Night Fury, who were these 2 kids, allegedly. They could have been grown men. They could have been children. There's no telling. They were vigilantes who used to patrol the streets of Sholo, Arizona, primarily after school. Like after 3:30 p.m. That's typically when you would see the fabled Night Owl and Night Fury. Two men donning sweatpants and masks that concealed their identity.
Yeah.
Deep voices. I remember. Okay, so and this
I've
is where
only
I'm
ever heard tales.
And when people used to say all the time, they'd say that you guys look like Night Owl and Night Fury, and they would even go as far as to call them Cody and Josh to their faces, and I that was always strange to me. But I now looking back, that I'm in my mid-20s, I can see the resemblance.
Yeah, definitely.
I could admit it. So for those of you who are not from Sholo and you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, Josh and I used to dress up like vigilantes when we were in 8th grade, summer of 8th grade going into high school. So we were not exactly like children, but we were still kids. And we would use fake names, the Night Owl and the Night Fury, which are both stolen from Watchmen and from, I think, How to Train Your Dragon. And we would go out and defend the streets. We would carry golf clubs. We'd go to Safeway. We'd go to, you name it, Safeway, the city park, wherever.
It was more of like a loitering club,
right? And we would
just
we try to talk like Christian Bale from The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I mean, if there was actually any situation that arose, I think we may have sprung into action, but. I mean, other than a little like racism here and there wasn't really a lot going on in Sholo. Right,
and for good reason too. I think that it was the presence of us was actually pretty threatening or intimidating.
Yeah,
and I can't say. I mean, like now it's been 13, 14 years. I can't speak to like, did it not ever happen while we were looking for crime? Because there was no crime, or because we were there? Who knows? I like to think it's because we were there. I think. We were the threatening, like we were just making our presence known, and it in a way it struck a chord with lots of criminals that like now is not the time, because like there are no cops, like we don't call 911 here. We have the Night Owl and we have the Night Fury.
Yeah.
So I think very important. The last thing I'm going to ask you for our interview segment is there is a rubber duck that we have that came from Ballyhoo, which is it's in Ballard, Seattle. It says "Be Mine" on it. It's a little rubber ducky that came out of a, what do you call it? Like a vending machine, a quarter machine. What is the significance behind this ducky?
Yeah, I think it's just, I think it's like our friendship is kind of what it represents to me. Represents the opportunity to meet every, seems like every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and trade it off. It's actually currently sitting in my kitchen.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, for a time, it was I usually keep it on my entertainment center when I have it. But yeah, so essentially every time Josh and I meet up, this duck that we got from a slot machine thing, I don't know what you call those things. Like, it comes in those little capsules.
Yeah.
And they have their own little like capsule machine inside of Ballyhoo, and you can put in a quarter and you get a random thing in the little capsule. So we happened to get a rubber ducky, and I took it back to my brother's apartment, and I was like, we should trade this off every time we see each other. So I'll keep it this time, or whatever it was, and then I had the duck for a time, and then when I saw you, I gave you the duck, and then, and I haven't gotten it back yet because it's been so fucking long since we've actually, now that COVID's kind of chilled out for like the last year or so.
Yeah.
Up until now, we haven't been able to see each other. But I don't think I've ever told anybody like the actual story behind like why there's the duck that's sitting in. I usually like to keep it a secret. I'm like, don't worry about the duck. It's fine.
I don't think anyone's ever asked me about it, which is kind of weird because I just have this tiny rubber duck. Like, it's like on top of a picture or something like that, like on the wall, which, come to find out, it also seconds as a butt plug, which is great. It's so versatile.
You modded it out.
Oh yeah.
I fuck with that. Maybe that'll be our next time that I'm in Seattle or Washington, whatever. That'll be our next thing. Maybe we'll get a tattoo of the rubber ducky.
Yeah, but it should be in the form of a butt plug.
I don't give a fuck. I'll do it. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Visceral Musings. Right now, we are taking our very first ever potty break, and we don't have any sponsors. Who knows if we ever will. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to shamelessly plug my band's first ever tour. Negative 32 will be live. First up, we have Las Vegas on March 21st at the Eagle Airy Hall. March 22nd, Berkeley, California at 924 Gilman Street. That's right, you heard that correctly, 924 Gilman Street. March 23rd, Carpinteria, California at the Carpinteria Skate Park. March 24th, we will be in Anaheim, California at the Doll Hut. March 25th, we will be in Long Beach. And then March 26th, we're wrapping things up in San Diego, California at Winston's Beach Club. This entire tour is going to be Negative 32 as well as Vacant Skies. Once again, thank you guys for checking out this episode with my buddy Josh Smith. Let's get right back into it and let's talk about some religious shit. All right, so we touched super briefly. You said that you had tattoos that were symbolically religious to you. I remember when we were growing up, whenever you do the Pledge of Allegiance in an American school, they usually they'll follow it up by saying, "Now you can take a moment of silence." And I remember so vividly when we were kids, even though we goofed around literally all the time, every time I looked at you, you were the only kid in the class that had their head bowed, observing the moment of silence. Mm-hmm. And I knew for you at the time, this was a religious thing for you. And I'm like, I fuck with people a lot. And I'm sure I gave you shit over being religious at some point. And, but I want to know, because when we opened up into this and I wanted to segue into something that was, important to you so that we could talk about what you want to talk about. One of the things you highlighted was religion. And I want to know why the subject strikes such a chord with you.
Yeah, it probably strikes a chord with me just because I think I was raised really religious. I mean, when you saw me in 6th grade, we fucked around all the time. But yeah, I mean, I devoutly believed that what my mom was telling me was the truth. And it was kind of, that segue out of religion was really tough for me, because I think it probably started because I've always been really curious about stuff. So like I like to play devil's advocate, and it's not to challenge somebody or try to trip them up. It's more of a from a place of curiosity. So I remember asking my mom. I had said, I was like, you had always told me that God knows what your plan is. Like, he knows what's going to happen to you, when you're created. And I was like, something about that bothers me. is I was like, there are people that go to hell. I was like, if God is he's creating these souls, he's creating these people, he's bringing them on earth. I was like, doesn't it seem pretty honestly fucked up that he's creating these things knowing that they're going to burn in hell for all of eternity? I was like, if you knew that, when you got, if you had a baby, that it would suffer its entire life in agonizing pain, would you have that baby? She's like, no, probably not. I was like, so in that aspect, I was like, why would God knowingly create something that he knows is going to suffer? Seems like irresponsible. And she's like, no. God only knows what's going to happen to you until right before it happens. I was like, well, you've never told me that. I was like, how do you know that? She's like, God told me. And that was when I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, shit. He made an appearance. Because God's been notably absent for the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Albeit,
easily.
Maybe if you're a Mormon, I mean, Joseph Smith, he elected the saints of latter days. But up until then, I mean, like, he's been more than silent, I would say.
Yeah, and well, I mean, there's a lot of really valid questions, and honestly, not to bash religion. There's a lot out there, but without a doubt, the Christian Bible is the best piece of literature ever made. There's a Edgar Allan Poe story, and it's about a gorilla that gets released or it escapes. I think there's even a movie that you can watch about it. And there's a lot of people, a lot of the way that he worded the writing, a lot of people were like, is he racist? Because there was like some like kind of like sexual innuendo with this like black gorilla and these like white women. And people were like, is he racist or is he making a commentary, on society? And that's why he's such a good writer, is because he saw that there was two separate demographics, the racist people and the people that, are probably more liberal leaning that want a commentary on the way society views black men, and the disparities between, white and black culture and how, black men preying on white women, that whole deal. The reason that, because nobody knows if he was racist. He wrote he wrote a story that appeals to two completely opposite demographics, and people argue over what he meant behind it. And that's what the Bible does. Is it's written so perfectly that it doesn't matter your narrative or what you want to preach. You can find a passage in the Bible to use as a tool to progress your own narrative of what you currently believe, Right.
And with saying that as well, so my house is full of religious shit. It started off as a joke for a long time, but then I got genuinely interested in it because I thought it would be funny if people came here. And I told one of my ex-girlfriends, I was like, I have an affinity for the statue of Ganesha, the clearer of obstacles, because I thought that it was so unsettling. I thought that the human body with the elephant head and the multiple limbs, I was like, it fucking freaks me out. And so she bought me a statue of it because and that's, if you know me, you know that that's fucking perfect. I love that. So I have that up. But then I started buying things, and one of the things that I bought, which I think speaks perfectly to the point that you were trying to make, is the Psalms for your everyday life. And so it goes through, and you can basically pinpoint it specific things like whether it's depression, divorce, if you're disparate or whatever the fuck it is, whatever the case may be, you're poor, you're going through financial ruin. There are passages in the Bible that are so oddly on the nose for something that's written so long ago that, and I would say the same, I don't take away from people that enjoy this thing, but you have to also understand, and the Bible also, any religion teaches tolerance to a certain degree of other people's beliefs, that when I come across certain things like this, that I feel deeply in the sense of like, this is something that somebody believes in, and I think it's beautiful. And that's the only way that I can really, really put it to you, is that I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think it's one of the best things that's ever been written, and I think it's beautiful the way that it teaches people to love thy neighbor. I love the way that it highlights, the accomplishments of so many the things that you accomplish in life come within. But where I start to stray away from it is that these certain things, they harken back to God. And so I remember specifically this one time that we were outside of, it's the Trump store in Sholo, Arizona. It's not where it used to be, but in its old location, we were outside of it because we were like, dude, we got to fucking see this place. So we were going to go inside, and then there was a homeless man outside, and he comes up to us and he says, like, do you guys have any money? And the guy who was with me at the time, let's call him Tyler, he pulls $5 out of his pocket, broke. This guy was broke. And he hands it to him, and he gives the homeless guy the dollar, and he was like, thank you so much, God, and then takes the money and walks away. And I was like, I took such issue with that because I'm like, in your view, and like it's a very honest view that this guy has, God gave you $5 today. But in reality, Tyler gave you $5. That's why I've always said that my faith is not in a deity or a professed, like, organized religion, but it's in people. And so I feel like people discount their own achievements by giving such, like, they give all their praise and all of their gratitude goes straight to God. And I get that some people need a place to place their gratitude. For me, it's typically within another person or within a group of people, and I believe wholeheartedly in people. That's where my faith is.
Yeah, I think that if, on that topic, like somebody thanking God for somebody giving them money, I think that's great. I think if you're able to, view it in that light, that God did that thing for you, but I also think that you need to recognize the bad things that God allows, in that children's story, that like animated cartoon, God came through and killed every firstborn that didn't have goat's blood marked on their door. That's some like old school, like biblical shit. So if we're sitting here, we thank God for all the good, and then, we get so upset at, Satan for all this other awful shit that happened, and people can say, it's free will that causes it, if it's either God is all powerful or he's all good. He's not both. God being all powerful and all good wouldn't give like a 3-month-old child bone cancer. That child is not capable of sin being at 3 months old, So, it's a really tight argument when you get into these. If you say this person did this bad thing or they sinned and that's why they're being punished, it's free will. But there are so many different cases where, and it's always the greatest argument, because every time I'd ask my mom these questions that would trip her up, she would be like, there are some things that we can't understand about God, but it's God's plan. I was like, well, whatever, if God had a plan to give a 3-month-old baby bone cancer, I don't want to be part of his plan. Like whatever shit he has lined up for me, and I know that can come off like disrespectful and stuff. And if whatever religion is right, and I don't want to bash those people for it, I just can't find any real like logical sense when it comes to very specific situations that we see on a daily basis. That's what I have a hard time with.
Right.
My fiance, she was raised Muslim, and she still believes in the faith. Probably one of my best friends, other than you, he's a devout Christian guy. He's probably the most like real, I think, version of being Christian is. He's a amazing, wonderful guy. He has a second kid on the way. He acts how I think, what the ideal Christian person, should act like. And he fully believes it, and I've always been really jealous of that. But I've always kind of, especially lately, I've turned to science, I mean, especially after watching Interstellar, I had this like fascination with like stars, like the galaxy, thinking it gave people anxiety thinking about it, but I always felt better thinking about like how small we are, how insignificant we are. It always made me feel better. But if I had to be honest with you, lately, might be kind of an interesting thing to say, but I think there are aspects of science that you need just as much faith in as you do religion.
What do you think that is?
Well, I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, there's science-based stuff that you can physically see, you can physically prove. You can do at home. Adding different chemicals together, different mixtures. Seeing how the sun affects a plant. There's things that you can witness easily, but when it comes to theoretical physics or anything, astronomy, outside of our reach of what we know. There is no, sure, we get a little bit more of physical based evidence. You can see a picture of it or a video, but I think that it's unless you experience things yourself physically. I think I personally need more faith in the fact that what I'm being shown is real. There's different, galaxies out there. How the fuck am I supposed to know that? I've never looked through a telescope and seen a different set of planets, or I've only ever seen Instagram videos of Saturn. I've never actually physically seen it myself. So I just feel like when there is low level stuff that you can see science-based, that's, you're able to see for yourself in person, it's so much easier to accept all the other shit that's kind of fed to you that you're not able to physically experience yourself.
Right. What do you think it was about the movie Interstellar that kind of piqued your interest in wanting to know more about the galaxy or space as a whole, as you put it?
I think a lot of it has to do with Einstein's theory of relativity. I mean, there's more than one section of it, but in Interstellar, there's time passes by differently when you're closer to a black hole because of the way that mass and space and time all interact with one another. So right. The closer you are to a black hole, the slower time affects you. And I mean, it even happens here on Earth. I mean, it happens on such a microscopic level. So I mean, if say me and you were twins, we were born at the same time, and they put there was nothing wrong with it, it's going to work forever. They put a watch in both of our pockets, and say that I fly planes for a living and you work in an office. Because I fly planes and I'm moving faster than you are, there is going to be a very small discrepancy. If me and you meet up at 30, there's going to be a small discrepancy in those times, because how mass and time and space all affect one another, time passes by. So I think that's one thing that kind of fucked me up, is trying to wrap my mind around the fact that if you go at the speed of light away from the Earth for, 10 years and you come back, 20 years passed for you, but, a million years passed on Earth. That's shit that's I'm more inclined to believe it just because I know that there's a lot of science behind it. But that in itself, it's theoretical physics. It sounds so science fiction-y. Where you're telling me that you can time travel into the future, because that's what it is, and I'm supposed to believe that, but not believe that there's a magical guy in the sky that created us.
Right.
So I just feel like there's some level of, I'm sure there's a lot of people that might disagree with me, but I think there is so much about science that we can't physically observe ourselves, that you have to have a level of faith in what you're learning. Even Einstein's theory of relativity, I don't know the whole equation. I don't know how he came up with it, and until you can fully understand something, there's that blind faith that you have to have around if it's true.
And that's why it's a theory. So like a theory is widely regarded as fact in a scientific community, but like the theory of evolution, the reason why evolution is a theory is because you can't observe it. It's something that happens slowly over a long period of time to a group of people. Like individuals don't evolve, populations do. So it makes it a lot more difficult to observe it, and that's why it's a theory rather than like, the law of evolution is because you can't observe it.
I think a big part of it though is how people talk about it. It's more about the rhetoric around stuff that's supposed to be theory based. I actually had this. It's just kind of a stupid idea. I have a kind of like a hyperactive mind when it comes to like just like overthinking everything, and I had this idea that maybe like everything's a theory. Because I mean, even in science, when they come to conclusions, there has been times where there is other evidence that eventually comes up that disputes it. Yeah, and so I mean, if you really think about it, I feel like everything is in a state, like it's in almost like a waiting state for there to be something to disprove it,
or like certainty.
Yeah.
Nothing is certain. Okay.
Yeah. So what it would fall under is almost everything is theory based. Everything is factual until proven otherwise. Everything would technically be theory based until you're waiting for something else to, prove it wrong or to be the the outside marker for it being true or not.
It's hard to say that anything is absolute. I get what you're saying with that. One other thing that I wanted to like really, really hit on that I know in like, it's not to shit on like a group of people that some people call a cult, but you and I grew up in predominantly a Mormon community. And so I think a lot of people that grow up in a Mormon community, that like they know what they know about it, but I think they don't see it the same way because like a lot of our friends grew up in a Mormon community, but were like Mormon adjacent. Like they themselves did not practice the faith, but they had other people that were like very well vested in the church that were in their family. And so without even realizing it, they did enjoy some sort of like favoritism or like they got privilege going forward because of that. So what I really, really wanted to know was we grew up in a place that like you experienced religious discrimination, whether or not you knew it in the moment. You definitely did at some point in time because I knew you were a good fucking basketball player and you never got to be you never got to be a starter. You never got to be on the team because you weren't a fucking Mormon. And I knew that growing up. I never played sports because I was not a Mormon. And I knew that like other kids that were, that fit the criteria a little bit better than me, they were going to get special treatment and that I was never going to get. And so what I wanted to know, like, because I knew you wanted to pivot into, like, you didn't necessarily say it, but I knew that we were going to pivot into religion as soon as you told me. What do you think your takeaway is, like, going into adulthood, experiencing the childhood that we did from the place that we grew up in, with religious favoritism, with there being a religious bias, how did that guide you into adulthood with your faith?
That's a really good question. I think there's been various stages, I mean, going into adulthood, right out of like high school. I think it's definitely progressed in a different way than I think the standpoint that I have now. At first, my first philosophy class, like any other kid, you start to, question, and that's one thing that I feel like my religion, not anyone else's, taught me was that questioning, your faith is like, you go down that road. So there's always this like hint of like, what if even though it feels comfortable to question things and that's how it should be, what if I'm doing what I'm not supposed to be doing? What if, my religion that I was taught was right and I'm falling down that sinful path of questioning it? That's why religion's so great, is because it sets you up to be doubtful. But I mean, coming into adulthood, I think my most recent kind of like revelation is that I mean, having a fiance that's Muslim, I mean, there's questions that I respectfully ask her all the time. I'm like, there's been millions of people that have believed a different religion than you. There's been millions of them over the course of thousands of years. I'm like, that, mathematically the chances that you were born into a family that happened to get it right, religion, is kind of astronomical. You're telling me that the religion that you were raised with happens to be right? It's kind of we like to challenge each other like that, and it's not out of a place of me trying to question her faith or anything like that.
We like to have fun here.
Yeah. And her older brother, her dad, my fiance had a very difficult upbringing. She was adopted, very religious extremist family, and her older brother, he was older when they were around their biological father, and he was very extremist. He's more Christian leaning now than anything else, and I kind of find myself, especially after my senior year at Western. I know it's a very liberal school, but I had a North African authors class, and I got a chance to read The Veil and the Male Elite. Amazing book. It's one of those books that you can hear a sentence and it seems so like there's only one way to view it, and then it completely counters how you can view this one statement. And it's basically what the book is about is this, she's a feminist Muslim woman, and she's basically defending, in a sense, her religion, although it seems very misogynistic in a lot of the biblical texts, she kind of explains it from her point of view, from a feminist point of view. It's really enlightening. So I always felt that, especially after kind of like my religious trauma growing up with my mom, that I was always maybe, not saying that it's necessarily right, but more, leaning towards Islam than anything else. And it was really funny meeting Malika's older brother, because he's the exact opposite. He was raised, radically Muslim, and he's more Christian leaning, if there is such a thing, So I think that just, being raised, especially around like predominantly Mormon, my idea of religion, I think everybody's just trying to find a reason for everything. And I can't bash anybody or be upset at anybody for having, for wanting to believe in something or wanting to come up with reasons why we're here. I have a hard time, with not having any religion myself, being able to come to terms with the fact that, nothing happens when you die. Like, does that seem like it makes the most sense? I mean, I guess sure on some level, but, then like, what's this all for? It opens up a whole streamline of questions, I mean, like, I think the lack of religion, it can be similarly straining on certain levels than it can be having a religious faith and struggling with believing that it's true or not based solely on faith alone. So I think that, like I said, early on I had a really tough, kind of like no nonsense view of religion, kind of hated it. Anybody that was, had a faith was just annoyed by it. But I mean, as I've gotten older, I realize in a sense it's necessary for some people, whether they're actually right or not, and I'm just ignorant, or
or the other way around.
Yeah.
And too, with that, so many other people that indulge in religion, or that they take their faith, and a lot of people that I know too personally, they take their faith really seriously, and they're fucking amazing people. And so, like,
very envious of it.
I would have to second that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't think I've ever been convinced of anything. I honestly, I don't want to get all sappy on it. I think the only thing that I've ever in my life have been genuinely convinced of, and it kind of freaked me out, was me falling in love with Malika. I think that, and that's what I was, honestly, we didn't like officially become boyfriend, girlfriend right off the bat, is because I was so freaked out. I was like, I even told her, I was like, I don't believe in absolutes. So that's my, just like how I was raised in my view of religion or the world around me. I was like, I've never felt a feeling that is similar to like, I know the ground's not going to fall from underneath me when I go to walk outside. And not to, kind of change the subject or anything like that, but I just, that's one thing that I think the religion is kind of brought on, is that I don't believe in absolutes. But as I've gotten older, I think there are certain absolutes that I think I do believe in.
Right, and I fuck with that because I know when it comes to certain things, like you want to be... Getting older is scary, but the wisdom that comes with getting older is irreplaceable, and that's what I think about the most when I think about getting older. That it's not only a privilege, but the wisdom that comes with it is like something that you can't force or manufacture. It has to come with like being around the block or being traumatized. And so it's one of those like ugly things you have to go through to get something so perfect.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I thought you were going to say me personally. I thought maybe I was hoping it was me, but she can I'll take a back seat on this one. But I thought it was great talking to you. I think we've probably reached about like our time on here, unless there's something else you want to harp on right now.
No, I mean, I think there's a lot of topics that I could probably... I think I took up most of the time just in my responses to you.
No,
but
it's my show, your episode. It's all you, dude. And there's going to be lots of other times that we talk about lots of other shit. I promise.
Appreciate you having me on and letting me kind of rant. It kind of feels like a level of like therapy. I have all these like thoughts and stuff, so to be able to say it out loud to somebody is actually really nice. So thank you.
I appreciate it because this is my first interview. This is my first episode for the show. And so having to have one of my best friends on here was like, that was a necessity. But the fact that we were able to like achieve the goal, like this is what I was going for, was I wanted you to ramble. I wanted you to get like invested in something that you actually give a fuck about. And so it was really important to me. And so I really appreciated getting to hear what you had to say about it.
I'm just glad we could pop each other's cherries when it comes to podcasts. So,
and in so many other places, we popped each other's cherries. My last thing that I want to touch on is I always ask the guests for a top 3. So whether that be music, movies, books, TV shows, whatever. What are your top 3, and why should we watch them?
Okay, I got movies for you.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so obviously I talked about it earlier. Interstellar, probably one of the best movies ever made. I mean, you got Matthew McConaughey in it. I mean, the different concepts that they use in it, I think, is really thought-provoking. I think if anybody hasn't watched it, you definitely have to watch it. My other 2, probably want to be able to guess it. Lethal Weapon.
What?
Lethal Weapon.
That's not what I was expecting.
The first Lethal Weapon. I got me and my brother-in-law. We like fangirl over it. We get drunk off of whiskey and just laugh our asses off. It's less about it being like just super funny, but I think it's just a classic. It's just a classic film that, I mean, it was before what's the main actor in it?
Damn it! What's his name? The dude, they made fun of him on Key and Peele. Racist ass Mel Gibson. That's what it is. Yeah, racist ass Mel Gibson's.
So, Lethal Weapon. This was before everybody knew that he was racist. It was a great time in history before Mel Gibson, came out as racist. He really came out. He came out. And
yeah,
surprised all
very
of us.
Brave of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think my third, and this isn't any specific order, so but my third is going to be Big Trouble in Little China.
Fucking A, Kurt Russell.
Yeah, just I cannot. If I had to watch a movie for the rest of my life on repeat, it would be Big Trouble in Little China. I laugh my fucking ass off every time.
It's hilarious, yeah.
The old guy with the long nails, he's fucking creeping on the like young, like green-eyed girl. It's fucking golden.
Yes, Snake Plissken, right?
Yeah, Snake Plissken.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
All right, dude. Well, I really appreciate you taking my call. I'm glad that you were up for being on here. Yeah, I love you, dude. I can't wait for us to hang out again. I'll have to hit you up as soon as I get to Washington. But I hope you have a great night. And again, dude, I can't thank you enough for being on the first episode of this with me.
Thank you for having me on, man. Love you, buddy.
Love you too.